I was brushing my teeth when the call came in. Mom, flashing on the screen at 10:22 p.m. Weird. She never calls late. I answered with toothpaste still foaming in my mouth. Russell, she said, sharp and emotionless. We've decided you shouldn't come to Thanksgiving this year. I didn't even have time to process it before Dad chimed in from the background speakerphone. We just think it's better, for everyone, if you skip it this time. Then my sister's voice, Elena, pitched in like it was some sick intervention. You've made your life choices, Russ. We're not going to keep pretending you're doing great. What the hell is this? I spat into the sink and stared at the mirror, stunned. You owe us $47,000, remember? Dad snapped. And you stole $3,000 from our savings, Mom added, like it was a rehearsed accusation. That stopped me cold. Their savings? That money was mine, money I'd earned from freelance gigs during college. They took it, temporarily, when things were tight. I was 19. I didn't steal anything, I said quietly. My voice felt far away. Elena sighed. You design sound for video games, Russell. That's not a real job. You're almost 30 and still living in a shared apartment. The call spiraled. They mocked my lifestyle, said I embarrassed the family, that I was throwing away my potential. Mom's final words before hanging up. You're not invited this year. Don't make a scene. We need to preserve the family atmosphere. That line broke something in me. I stood in my bathroom for a long time after the call ended, just listening to the tap drip. The part that hurt wasn't being excluded. It was realizing how long I tolerated this. My family had always been like this, cold, transactional, obsessed with status. Real estate agents, lawyers, respectable careers. I'd chosen art, creativity, autonomy. They saw it as failure. But this wasn't just hurt feelings. It was a public exile. They wanted me gone and disgraced. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. Instead, I sat down at my desk, opened an old file on my computer labeled Statements 2015 to 2020, and began dragging documents into a new folder. Then I started recording a voice memo to myself. Date, time, summary of call, accusations. If they wanted to play this like a court case, fine. I'd come prepared. I wish I could say this call came out of nowhere, but it didn't. Not really. It was just the first time they said the quiet part out loud. My family's obsession with appearances goes way back. Our house was a shrine to framed diplomas, mahogany bookshelves no one read from, and granite countertops my mother used as props for Instagram. Dad used to say, if it doesn't look like success, it isn't success. I learned early to keep my wins to myself. When I landed my first freelance sound design gig at 17, a horror game that paid $200, I was over the moon. My parents barely looked up from their wine glasses. That's cute, Mom had said. But when are you going to study something real? At 20, I dropped out of a prestigious business school program. That's when things turned. Cold shoulders became passive-aggressive lectures. Every holiday turned into a quiet war, where I was either invisible or under attack. I kept working, built my skills. I now have a steady income designing immersive soundscapes for indie titles. I pay rent on time, have savings, and even teach virtual workshops. It's not glamorous, but it's mine. That didn't matter to them. They only saw that I didn't own property, didn't wear a suit, didn't have a fiancé or a respectable job. In their eyes, I was wasting space. But the money, that part hurt worse than anything. When I was 22, my parents asked to borrow $3,000. Short term, they promised. They were refinancing a property and had cash flow issues. I agreed. They framed it like I was helping the family. I never saw that money again. Then came the bigger blow. At 24, after I'd moved back in for 6 months between leases, Dad presented me with a spreadsheet. It listed every expense they'd covered while I was under their roof: food, utilities, even toilet paper. $47,000, according to him. Interest-free, of course, he said with a grin. We're not monsters. They started calling it my debt. Quietly at first, then louder. At family gatherings, they'd drop hints. Russell's still working off his contributions. My cousins would laugh awkwardly. I'd smile and swallow it. I didn't think they were serious. But now, after that call, I knew they were. They'd rewritten history. In their minds, I wasn't their son. I was a failed investment. So I did something I should have done years ago. I opened every financial file I had: bank statements, emails, payment receipts. I dug up the email from Dad confirming he'd taken the $3,000 temporarily. I took screenshots of old group chats where Mom bragged about my early projects, back when she still pretended to be proud. I started sorting them into folders. Money stolen, debt lies, gaslighting, holiday exile. It felt surgical, cold, necessary. Then I called my cousin Drew. He'd been the other black sheep in the family, cut off after he came out as gay. We hadn't spoken in years. Hey, I said, did my parents ever say anything weird to you about me owing them money? He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, they told the whole family you'd stolen from them. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about money. It was character assassination. So I made a new folder, defamation, and I kept going. For the first time in years, I felt calm. Not numb, not defeated, just still. Like a soldier before a war he didn't start, but damn well intends to finish. I stopped replying to messages. I knew the silence would bother them. That was part of it. They liked control. They liked being the ones who knew best. So when I didn't call back to apologize, they escalated. 3 days after the Thanksgiving ban, my brother Jason texted, "Dude, just pay mom and dad back. Why are you making this so dramatic?" I didn't reply. 2 days after that, Elena sent me a voice note. "I don't get why you're choosing to be bitter. We all got help from mom and dad. You're the only one acting like a victim." Except she wasn't asked to repay anything. Jason's grad school tuition? Paid in full. Elena's wedding? $38,000, catered by some Michelin-starred chef. Their help was love. Mine was alone. I downloaded the voice note and dropped it into the gaslighting folder. The more I dug, the uglier it got. I found emails where dad talked to a family friend, another real estate agent, mocking my career. He works in sound effects. I told him once, if you can't buy a house by 30, you're a hobbyist, not a professional. Hilarious, considering the man had taken out 2 second mortgages in the last decade and still owed my grandmother $60,000 he forgot to repay. I called her, by the way, Nana. She's 82, lives alone, and still hosts Thanksgiving every year. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Sweetheart," she said, "I was just thinking of you." I hadn't seen her in over a year. I'd stopped going to family functions because the tension was unbearable, but she'd always sent birthday cards, always checked in. She was the only one who never made me feel like a disappointment. "Nana," I said, "did my parents ever tell you they borrowed money from me?" She was quiet. Then she said, "They told me you took money from them, that you were struggling, that you weren't doing well." I sat down on the floor. "Nana, they stole from me. They used my savings. They want me to pay back 47 grand I never agreed to." Another silence. Then, gently, "I believe you." I didn't cry, but something cracked open inside me. Nana didn't owe me anything, but she listened. She didn't rush to defend them, didn't suggest I was overreacting. She just asked, "What are you going to do?" I told her the truth. I'm going to show them what they built and watch it fall apart. Because the truth was, my parents weren't the successful empire they pretended to be. Their life was a house of credit cards and second chances. And I had proof. I found a document in my old tax files. A W-2 form tied to a company I'd never worked for. A landscaping company registered under Jason's LLC. Dad had used my social security number. For what? I didn't know yet, but it stank of fraud. I requested my credit report. Lines of credit I'd never opened. 2 inquiries I couldn't explain. This wasn't just manipulation. This was identity theft. I started backing everything up to 2 separate drives. One on the cloud, one physical. Just in case. I wasn't taking chances. Then I made a spreadsheet. It listed every lie, every dollar, every recorded conversation. I titled it, Family Audit, Confidential. When I saw it all laid out, it was almost funny. For years they'd convinced me I was the failure. But they were the ones living off of illusion and borrowed time. And I was done being their scapegoat. Thanksgiving came and went. For the first time in my life, I spent it alone, and I wasn't sad about it. I ordered Thai food, queued up a playlist of horror game ambience, some of which I'd made, and scrolled through old photos. There we were at Nana's house. Perfect smiles, matching sweaters, Dad carving the turkey like a man auditioning for a Norman Rockwell painting. I looked closer. Jason rolling his eyes behind a wine glass. Elena scrolling through her phone. Me, half smiling, awkward, stiff, out of place. The performance had always been there. I'd just never had the stomach to call it what it was. A lie held together by denial and social status. But I wasn't performing anymore. At 6:03 p.m. Thanksgiving Day, I dropped the first file. It was subtle. Just one email, forwarded to the extended family thread, cousins, aunts, uncles. A screenshot of my dad confirming the temporary borrow of the $3,000 in 2018, followed by the spreadsheet he gave me claiming I owed them $47,000. No commentary, no accusations, just evidence. 10 minutes later, a series of screenshots. Text from Elena calling me a leech and mocking my job. A voice note from Mom last Christmas. Just let your siblings shine, Russell. You're not the star here. Don't make it about you. I added a short note. Since I've been excluded, I figured I'd offer some context. Happy Thanksgiving. Then I muted the thread and turned off my phone. By the next morning, I had 17 missed calls, 12 texts from Jason, most of them unhinged, and 3 voicemails from Mom sobbing. One from Aunt Marlene just said, "Russell, I always knew something was off. Call me." I did, and she didn't waste time. "Your father threatened to sue me once when I offered to help you after college," she said. "Said I was encouraging your failure." I couldn't believe it. Actually, I could. I just hadn't known how deep the rot went. Marlene had more. Turns out, she'd lent my parents $10,000 back in 2016 when their second property nearly went into foreclosure. They told the family I had begged for money. They spun my name into the crisis to preserve their pride. I asked if she'd send me the bank transfer details. She did, immediately. That afternoon, I started building the real report, the family ledger. Every time they lied, every dollar moved, every favor disguised as debt, every slight, insult, and manipulation. I called Drew again. "Hey," I said, "you remember that Christmas when they said you got drunk and ruined dinner?" He laughed. "I'd had one glass of wine. Jason spilled gravy and blamed me. You believed them too." I had. I believed a lot of things. Drew offered me something better than validation, collaboration. He sent me screenshots, stories, even an old email from Mom begging him not to tell anyone they'd cut him off because his lifestyle would confuse the cousins. It wasn't just me. I wasn't the problem. I was just the one who stopped pretending. That weekend, I made a private website. Just a landing page, password protected. Clean, factual, no rage. No drama. Just truth. I called it The Archive. And when I was done uploading the files, I sent one final message to the family thread. "I'm done arguing. If you want to know what really happened, visit this link. If not, that's fine too. But don't ever call me a thief again." Then I turned my phone off for 72 hours. And I slept better than I had in years. When I turned my phone back on 3 days later, it lit up like a bomb had gone off. 47 missed calls, 82 texts, a dozen voicemails, half of them from blocked numbers. The group chat? In shambles. Jason had left. Elena was demanding I take the site down before someone from Dad's brokerage sees it. My father sent a single text. "You have 24 hours to delete that before we take legal action." I screenshotted it, labeled it threats, and waited. But something unexpected happened. People started taking my side. Drew messaged me. "Uncle Mike just called me. Said your site made him sick. He didn't know half of it. He wants to talk." Then Aunt Marlene again. "Russ, I just want to say, I'm proud of you." Then, a message from my cousin Becca. "Is it true your credit was used for one of Dad's investments?" I'm checking mine now. That triggered something in me. I logged back into the credit monitoring service I'd set up and dug deeper. Hard inquiries tied to a property in Florida. Then I remembered. Dad had gone down there in 2021 for a business opportunity. It hadn't worked out. He'd said the financing fell through. Now I had a pretty good idea whose identity made it briefly work. I called the bank listed on the inquiry and asked to confirm the name and SSN used for the application. They refused, of course. Privacy laws. But the woman on the phone hesitated when I said, "I just need to know if my name was used on anything related to Elmridge Properties, LLC. A pause. Then, "I can't confirm or deny that. But I suggest you place a fraud alert on your credit profile immediately." That was enough. I added a new section to the archive. Unauthorized use of identity. I uploaded the credit reports, the bank letters, the financial connections. Drew, bless him, sent me a notarized statement about the email Mom had sent him years ago, the one where she blamed me for the family drama as a distraction from their money problems. Then, the dominoes really started falling. Uncle Mike shared the site with Grandma, and that's when everything changed. She called me, voice trembling. "Russell, I didn't know. I had no idea I'm so sorry." She asked if I would come to the next family meeting. Said she wanted everyone in one room. No yelling, just truth. At first, I hesitated. It felt like a trap. But then she added, "I want them to answer questions this time. Not you." I said yes. Meanwhile, Elena was in damage control mode. She sent me a carefully crafted, PR-sounding email. While I don't agree with how you chose to air things publicly, I acknowledge that your experience is valid. Let's talk, just us. I didn't respond. Jason went darker. I got a DM from one of his old college friends. Hey man, Jason's spiraling. He said your site ruined a big investment he was pitching. Not sure what's true, but heads up. That part surprised me. I hadn't named anyone directly, but the connections were obvious enough if you knew the family business. Then, 2 nights before the family meeting, I got a forwarded email. It was from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. Subject line, FYI, thought you should see this. Attached was an email from mom to several family members. Russell is unstable. He's distorting reality. Do not engage. He's seeking attention and revenge. If we stick together, this will blow over. That was the moment I realized. They still didn't get it. This wasn't about revenge. It was about the record. The truth. I didn't need them to like me. I just needed them to stop rewriting me. So I prepared for the meeting like it was a deposition. Printed everything. Labeled files. Bookmarked audio clips. I even printed the family tree and drew financial lines in red. Who got what? Who paid whom? Who was still pretending? Because this time, they were the ones walking into a performance. And I held the script. Grandma's house looked exactly the same. Plastic covers still on the couch. The old grandfather clock ticking louder than it needed to. A lemon pound cake on the kitchen counter that no one dared cut into. There were 13 of us in the room. My parents, Jason, Elena, a few aunts and uncles, cousins. Drew sat beside me. Aunt Marlene hovered in the corner like a witness at trial. Grandma stood at the front like a judge. I called this meeting because something is broken, she began. And I want to hear the truth from everyone. No one looked at me. They were trying to pretend this was just a disagreement, not a months-long unraveling of decades of manipulation. I let the silence settle before speaking. I brought copies, I said. Of everything. Dad scoffed. So now you're... What? A whistleblower? No, I said. Just someone who got tired of being lied about. I passed around a set of printed folders. I watched the color drain from my mother's face as she opened hers. The first page, I continued, is an email from 2018. You said I borrowed $3,000 from your account. That's your wording, not mine. The second page is your spreadsheet from 2 years later, listing the same $3,000 as a debt I refused to acknowledge. That lie snowballed into this. Jason muttered something under his breath. What was that? I asked. Just that this is ridiculous. I slid another folder across the table. That one's for you. It shows the hard inquiry made under my social security number in 2021, linked to your Florida investment. You applied for a business loan using my identity. Jason's eyes darted toward Dad. No, I didn't, he said too quickly. You sure? I opened a tab on my laptop, connected to a projector Grandma had set up. The screen lit up with my credit report. Because if you didn't, then Dad did it in your name. Which one of you wants to claim identity theft? Aunt Marlene actually gasped. It was the only genuine sound in the room. Elena stood up. Okay, enough. You've made your point. You're mad. But you're turning this into a witch hunt. I'm not mad, I said. I'm methodical. And tired. Then I played the voice note. Mom's voice, clear and sharp from a Christmas years ago. Just let your siblings shine, Russell. You're not the star here. I let the words hang. My parents stared at the floor. Grandma cleared her throat. I want to hear from them now. Is any of this untrue? Silence. Did you really borrow from Russell and tell the family he owed you? Still silence. Then Mom cracked. We were struggling, okay? Your father was trying to keep the business alive. We thought if we made it sound like Russell was in trouble, the others would stop questioning why we kept helping the others. Elena's wedding was almost 40 grand, I said. And worth every penny, she snapped. Jason stood suddenly. I'm not listening to this. He turned to the door. Sit down, Grandma said. Her voice had that old-school matriarch weight. He did. That's when Drew spoke up. Do you know what it's like to be cut off from a family for being yourself? They used me as a scapegoat too. Said I was causing stress. But now it's clear. They use whoever they need to cover their tracks. Aunt Becca, quiet until now, turned to Dad. Is it true the house is in foreclosure? The room froze. What? Elena whispered. It's not confirmed, Dad said too quickly. We're negotiating. I pulled out the document. Notice of default. Filed 3 weeks ago. You didn't even tell your own kids? Becca asked. You're the one who always brags about financial wisdom. They were unraveling faster than I could keep up. You didn't just hurt me, I said. You built your reputation off of a lie. And when it started to crack, you tried to pin it on me. I looked at Grandma. I'm not here to destroy them, but I won't lie for them anymore. She nodded. Thank you for telling the truth. Dad stood up. We're leaving. Mom followed, but not before turning to me. You've humiliated us. No, I said. You did that to yourselves. I just gave it a microphone. As they left, the air felt lighter. The lies didn't fill the room anymore. And I didn't feel small. Not anymore. In the weeks that followed, the silence from my parents was deafening, and I cherished every second of it. No calls. No texts. Not even a passive-aggressive group message. Just nothing. Like they'd finally realized I wasn't bluffing. That I wasn't their emotional punching bag anymore. Elena tried once, sent a long, rambling email full of pseudo-apologies. I'm sorry if you felt excluded. We all had different understandings. Maybe you could have brought this to us privately. I didn't respond. I archived it, labeled the folder non-apologies, and moved on. Jason blocked me. No surprise there. He's the kind of person who sees exposure as betrayal, but betrayal as strategy. I don't expect we'll ever speak again. I'm fine with that. Aunt Marlene called me a few days later. Your father came to me, she said, asking if I could help patch things up. I laughed. Patch what up exactly? He said the damage was done, but if you'd take the site down, he'd consider forgiving you. Forgiving me. The words made me laugh harder than they should have. That was the final confirmation I needed. Nothing had changed, not really. They weren't sorry. They were just exposed. Marlene said something after that stayed with me. Russ, some people only function when they're the hero of the story. You rewrote the script, and now they don't recognize themselves anymore. That stuck. Because she was right. I didn't destroy my family. I just stopped letting them lie about who I was. I focused on myself after that. Finally got into therapy, something I'd been putting off for years. Turns out, naming trauma is one thing. Understanding how it shaped you is another. The first few sessions were raw. Embarrassing, even. I talked about being a kid in a house where being quiet was rewarded and emotions were liabilities. About how success was never about joy, only optics. My therapist said something that hit me like a gut punch. Your family didn't abandon you, Russell. They abandoned authenticity. You just happened to be its last carrier. I started reconnecting with people who did care. Drew and I talk almost every week now. Turns out we have more in common than just trauma. We're both huge survival horror fans and are planning to collaborate on a small indie title. He's writing. I'm scoring. It feels good. Real. Nana invited me over last Sunday for tea and ginger cookies. We didn't talk about the fallout. We just sat quietly, comfortable. As I was leaving, she slipped me a letter. Handwritten. On real stationery. Inside, she wrote, I am proud of the man you are. Not because you exposed anyone, but because you finally saw your own worth. Love, Nana. I keep it on my desk now, right next to my audio interface and sketchbook. There was one last thing, almost poetic. I got a notice from my credit monitoring service. One of the fraudulent accounts in my name had defaulted. The lender was coming after someone for repayment. I sent in the fraud report with all the proof, scrubbed my name from the mess, and walked away clean. Let Jason deal with that one. Now, whenever I see family photos on social media, Dad with his motivational quotes, captions, Mom tagging herself at charity events, I don't feel rage anymore. Just distance. They can keep their masks, their granite kitchens, and curated lives. I've got peace. I've got proof. And finally, I've got myself.